let me even point out that this subsidy thing, I wouldn't say it was wrong or it was bad, but the fact that there was a bit of vagueness, and now it would seem like people were expected to accept the removal because of this vagueness. But if government had been diligent in sealing up that vagueness, I don't think we would be in this mess. And so if some people were making subsidy claims without actually supplying the refined fuel at the right amount, whose duty was it to spot those fraudulent persons and do away with them and ensure that the right people came on board? And so if the right people had come on board, I think Nigerians will still be enjoying subsidy. It's not just about saving money for the country. It's about ensuring that the right people enjoy subsidy so that it can trickle down to Nigerians. That's number one. Number two, in terms of what else is contributing to the economic challenge, it's just the two of them: subsidy removal and, of course, unification of the exchange rate. I like to think that maybe the government has not been able to handle both very well, because there are certain things I think government should have been doing to ensure that Nigerians are not at the receiving end. Yes, initially it could be quite painful, but for how long is it supposed to be painful? And I think that's the question the federal government is not answering. So you remove subsidy. A number of persons would have expected that by this time around we should have more players in the field in terms of refining, so that it can be quite cheap. And so you have just Dangote, right? We have modular refiners. What's their capacity? And how many more people are you bringing into the sector? If you're not licensing more people, there is no way this environment can be competitive enough for it to reduce, despite the fact that subsidy had been removed. But we don't see the federal government saying much when it comes to more people being licensed. Instead, what the regulatory body is telling us, how many people have imported? We are still importing. Do you understand? And it's having ripple effect. When you look at the oil price at the international market, you add it to the exchange rate differential. All of those things are contributing to the high cost of fuel. So what's government to do when it comes to licensing more people? Now, in terms of those unification of exchange rate, I like to think that government could have done more. Now, first of all, we do export oil, right? When it comes to our oil production, it fluctuates, okay? Despite their claims, I think I read a report where they said we have not gone beyond 1.7 million barrels per day. There was a time we used to do 2.5 million barrels per day. Can't we return to that era? I would think that the government should have been more aggressive to ensure that the production is high, so that when we export, we earn more Forex. When you earn more, you're able to
defend the Naira.
To defend the Naira. But we're not doing anything when it comes to that basic one. And then you have the presidential candidates. They're talking about this subsidy removal, but none of them is talking about this.
Exactly. Right? None of them is talking about
They have to talk about it. What are they going to do to ensure that that gap is sealed? Whether they're going to increase the production of oil, or they're going to ensure that we export more. What are we planning to export? Are there industries we are trying to create so that we wouldn't be importing things? You know, these are some of the things I think we should be discussing as far as this election is concerned. And I don't know, there is so much concentration of fuel subsidy, but we also have to talk about the exchange rate.
Yeah, definitely, because the exchange rate entwined with the fuel subsidy, that's what's fueling the high inflation in Nigeria. And just like you said, I think in as much as we are focusing on the fuel subsidy and all the candidates are talking about what they will do if they get the opportunity, they should also be focusing on the exchange rate. At least tell us what you are going to do to defend the Naira, because that's where the problem lies. Because if the subsidy was removed and Nigeria is exporting more crude and getting enough forests, the federal government can be able to defend the Naira, and we won't even notice what's going on. And if inflation is rising, it won't rise that bad to haunt Nigerians that will start crying. So you should be telling us what you are going to do. If you have other industrial areas that you want to open up, if you become the president, that will maybe in few years of your administration, it will transcend into Nigerian being productive more, exporting more, and more forex getting into our pockets. Let us know, because all these things are the things that are becoming cumbersome in that area. And also when it comes to refined oil, because I believe it's quite simple when it comes to economics. When supply outweighs demand, prices are bound to crash. So when you remove subsidy, the federal government never did anything in the sector to make sure that there's enough competitiveness. Empowering modular refineries. Go to the Niger deltas. There are people who are refining fuel at their backyard. And they are using it to fuel their generators, their motorcycles, and do whatever they are doing. They go in, as much as I know, the way they get the crude, they don't get it in the right, but they still mechanize their own way of refining it to a finished product, produce kerosene for themselves, produce fuel for themselves. So why can't we look into those areas and look at some people who have the capacity and capability to do those things and empower them, pumping money into that sector so that the supply can outweigh the demand, that Nigeria will have so much enough that it will outweigh our own domestic use and we'll still have enough to export.
You know, listening to all of these speakers, the contenders, Donadu questioned whether there was even for subsidy in the first place. He even asked a question whether it was holistic enough to a very large extent to cover the expenses. And Showore, in the other hand, said that he himself, he has always advocated for this fuel subsidy, that is the only thing that the federal government is doing for the Nigerian citizens. But the ones that are benefiting from it are the elite. But he's going to do it in a way that it will affect, the average Nigerians. But what is that your model? What is that way that you're going to do it in order to affect Nigerians? Whether you like it or not, I'm going to applaud Atiku from coming up with this model. It means that they sat down, they thought about what is going on, in as much as there are some bridges to cross in this particular issue.